Welcome to Take It from the Ironwoman. My name is Susanne Müller, your host and the Ironwoman. This podcast is about empowering yourself and others to make real changes in the world. You will hear from everyday, smart, sophisticated, hip people like you and me. Not everybody has to be an Ironwoman to impress the world. Together, we will learn from the sports and business leaders how you can become a more successful person as an entrepreneur or a leader. It's one step at a time, one day at a time. Take your steps now. Take your big steps now. Join me on this journey to success. Take it from the Ironwoman. We only have special guests, and today we talk to Toni Baker. So today we go to God's country. Toni, introduce yourself and tell us why it is God's country. I know it's so beautiful.
Well, the Pacific Northwest is absolutely beautiful. My name is Toni Baker. I live in Central Washington. I was born and raised on a fruit farm. My parents grew apples and pears and cherries. I worked in the orchard from when I was 10 years old. We did water, we hoed around trees, we picked fruit. Our high school used to let out for 2 weeks for picking apples because the whole community was involved. So as I moved on and went to college and got my career going, I started traveling around to Idaho, Montana, Utah, and I just feel so blessed to be in some of the most beautiful cities and states that you can go to in the Pacific Northwest. We're blessed with mountains and trees and incredible weather. That's why I call it God's country.
It's just the best of everything. And we also have to give some shout out to our mutual friend, Sherman, who brought us together. And he said something, you two should meet. We're still wondering why we should meet, but certainly we're having a good conversation. We both worked for Nestle. We never knew each other, but at least we were in the Nestle family. That always combines us a little bit. And we also find out we're marathon runners. Tell us a little bit about that. How did it all start?
Well, I started running. I belonged to a club and started running with a group of women early in the mornings because I like to work out early morning. I could never work out at night after work. I'm too tired. I could always find an excuse not to go. But the mornings worked for me. So I'm a morning person anyway. I just started running with a group of women and we started doing some little races around the Portland area where I was living at the time. Then we just got to where a couple of us said, well, hey, maybe we should run a marathon. Okay. So that's what I did.
That's how it starts.
That's how it starts. I trained with a group. I can't remember. I think it was Portland Road Runners was the name. And it was a training course. I did that. And then I ran my first marathon. It was the Portland Marathon. It was horrible. I had a couple of girlfriends that jumped in at the last 5 miles with me. At mile 20 was the last 6 miles. I honestly don't think I would have finished if they hadn't have jumped in. My legs hurt so bad. I was tired. You feel defeated almost, but I wanted to finish and they kept me going. Toni, you've gone this far. You can keep going. You can do it. You can do it. I did. I still thank them to this day for their love and support that they showed me because they really got me through that horrible marathon.
Do you think they ran marathons before so they knew what could happen to you? Or
no, none of them ran marathons before. They just jumped in with me to support me. And then one of my friends who I was running with in the mornings, he wanted to run a marathon. I don't know if I want to run another marathon. And he said, oh, come on. He goes, I've got this book and it's John Gallagher and we'll train for his book. So we did. And we ran the Big Sur Marathon, which was beautiful. I highly recommend that marathon to anybody, just for the scenery alone.
I heard about it, but it's also tough.
Right. Well, in Portland, there's a lot of hills. So we were used to that. But what made that race difficult was we had a 70-mile-hour headwind going up a hill. Right when it started, when the marathon started. You couldn't even run. You had to just buckle down, put your head down and move your arms and just go into it. But then after you got over that big hill, it was okay. I felt great that marathon. It worked really well for me. Unfortunately, my friend Bo, he had a tough marathon. His first one turned out tough for him. He trained together and we want to finish together, but he was really having a tough time. His wife jumped in with him and another friend jumped in with me and she ran me in and Gail ran Bo in. So that was a good marathon for me. Then I got pregnant with my first child and I ran a half marathon in Vancouver, BC, and that was fun. But my friend Bo went on to run probably 80 marathons, and he and his wife traveled all over. They did marathons in Italy and France and Germany and just all these beautiful different places. And so I was always envious of that. I would have loved to have been able to do that, but a different route and had a family. And in fact, they had a little travel business.
So you did 2 marathons and obviously other races. What do you think you can learn from that you can take into the business world, or what has helped you?
Just the determination and knowing that it's tough, but you can get through it. You can work your way through it. But as you're running marathons, you have to have the right mental attitude to do that. You really do. I think that's probably what it has taught me. You have to have a good attitude and a positive attitude, believe in yourself, and be able to move forward. And you do have to be that way in the business world, especially being a woman.
You said it, moving forward, right? In running, when do we ever move backwards? Never. Exactly. I think this is even a visual for all of us that we need to move forward. We need to one step at a time, one day at a time. Yes, in life, there's not always like sunny days. When you mentioned 70-mile wind, I don't know if I can do that, but you were there, you signed up. What else can you do? You just have to make the best out of it.
We just buckled down and got through it. And once we got over the top of the hill, it was good. And that's business too. You're going to run into issues that are difficult. And how do you handle it? It's a lot like running a marathon.
Life is a marathon.
So after leaving Nestle, I started selling candy for Ferrara candy company it's an Italian-owned company, and Mr. Ferrara sold the company to an investment company. And then unfortunately he passed away. I never had the pleasure of meeting him, but I've heard lots of hilarious stories about him. So I started selling candy and I thought something different, something fun. And I was recruited by a friend of mine, and it actually was really good timing, because Nestle Waters was starting to go through a lot of major changes. I never dreamed I'd be selling candy. I loved selling water, but candy's a lot more fun. Healthy by any means, but it's a lot more fun to sell.
That's an interesting way to look at things. Water is much harder to sell than candy.
It was. Well, it was becoming very competitive. When I first started with 7-Eleven in 1987, part of the training was you had to work in a store. One day, our division manager and training manager and HR manager came out to check in on us. And we were walking the store. And I remember the division manager there, we had one facing of Aquafina water. He said, "Look at that, a bottled water." I said, "Who the hell's going to buy bottled water?" And then 15 years later, I went to work for Nestle Waters. We were selling water. Arrowhead was the brand out west. We had 6 regional brands. And then I was selling San Pellegrino and Aquapana and Perrier and Nestle Pure Life. So all the fun brands. But it was just so interesting to see that back in 1987, there was one facing and now you have full doors. Things have evolved so much. Yes, selling candy is a lot easier than selling water for sure.
What insights do you have for people who want to start in that industry? Maybe we should start in candy because it's easier to sell candies. What wisdoms do you have for the listeners here?
Know that it's necessarily an industry, but I think looking for a company that offers good training when you're starting. Because I was very blessed to have started with 7-Eleven, I feel, because they have excellent training. Nestle has good training. Ferrara is getting there. They are really working on their training and they have come a long ways. To me, if I was coming out of college, I would want to look at the companies that offer good training because that's huge. Mm-hmm. It helps you either to succeed or not, to be able to understand their company, their culture, the business. I just think it makes a huge difference.
I never thought about that. It's a very good recommendation. What else?
The things that I like about Ferrara too is that when we do have somebody new, we have a mentoring program. They set them up with somebody who's been in the industry, maybe not necessarily in their channel, because we have the separate channels, grocery, drug, mass, and then convenience, because that's someone you can go to and ask maybe a question that you maybe feel is a stupid question, but you don't want to ask your boss. You can go to your mentor and ask that question. And to me, there's no such thing as a stupid question. One you don't ask is a stupid question. That's always been my philosophy. I do love that about Ferrara, is that they do have a mentoring program. And I think that's something that's very valuable.
We also have to learn how to speak up. We all know that when somebody in a group is asking a question, somebody else within that group might also have that question. We're like, thank God the other person was asking that question. I didn't have to. We can all learn from each other.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's so important. It really is. I think that's one of the things as I've gotten older is that, and have been in the business for 36 plus years, is that you just become more confident in being able to ask a question. Maybe it is a silly question. And sometimes I'll start off saying, this might be a silly question, and lots of times it isn't. To your point, someone else had the same question.
The first time I went into a factory for Nestle waters, I had a totally different approach on looking at water. I said, this is so clean here. They're like, it has to be clean. It's FDA is coming and then they're checking and it has to be 100% clean. And also the people who are working there.
You do. And the same thing with candy. When I took a tour at our factory in Chicago, and same thing, everybody, you wear hairnets, jackets, you had to take off all your jewelry, everything, so that there's no contamination in any way. It's very clean, and there's nothing better than getting a Sour Bright crawler right off the chain there.
Now you have to share with us some statistic that I looked at your website, and it says, how many kilos of sugar are we consuming?
Oh, truckloads, trainloads. We bring it in by the trainload. It's our number one ingredient.
Well, we also need some healthy pleasures. Since we're talking about marathon running, healthy habits, healthy thoughts. So sometimes we need a little candy to lighten up the day. And sugar certainly is helping us. What about networking?
Oh, absolutely. Networking, I think, is very important. And that's something that Ferrara is very good at as well. For those that are working in the office in Chicago, I work remotely. The majority of the salespeople work remotely. But for all of the people that are in category man leadership and some of the brand teams, that kind of thing, that networking is huge. And in fact, when we moved from Oak Brook to downtown Chicago, they took over the old post office building and refurbished it. And that's where our headquarters are. It's a gorgeous building. It really is. And there's several other companies in there as well. But one of the things they did was that they put up cafes and a lot of areas where people could go and have meetings and not have to be in an office. We have offices and conference rooms, but they also made it so that you can have some casual conversations and that sort of thing in the cafe or areas that they have there. It makes it really nice. One of the reasons why they decided to move down to downtown Chicago was that they wanted to attract younger people that wanted to join a company and move up.
And how did you get through the pandemic? It was actually good for your business?
It was very good. We had supply chain issues like everyone else in the country. If somebody got sick with COVID, we had to shut the line down, clean everything down. Everybody on that line had to go home. We had a lot of good policies and procedures in place to keep everybody safe, but it also was a disruption to the production of the product. But everybody had that challenge. It wasn't just Ferrara. But we've learned a lot from COVID. We have probably safer, better procedures for cleanliness. We also learned that you don't necessarily have to go into an office. I've worked remotely, though, for over 25 years. So I really felt for the younger people that had small children.
What can you give us as an insight on working from home? You said you've done it for the past 25 years. What is the hardest or what is the easiest for you?
One of the things when I was with 7-Eleven was that they started getting rid of offices. And our HR manager, Janet Henry, gave everyone a book called How to Work from Home. I read it from cover to cover. You have to have a place set up. It's habit. It's that discipline, like training for a marathon.
Exactly.
And you have to be disciplined in that I'm at my desk at 8:00, and I am every morning. Sometimes I try to be at my desk by 7:30. You just start your work day, do my lunchtime, and then I'm back to work. And I work till 4:30, 5:00. It's just a matter of being disciplined. When you have lots of work on your desk, you're stuck at your desk.
Some people think like working from home is easier, but it's actually, you need to dedicate the time and the space. It's a discipline.
It is. But I actually think it's easier because there's far less distractions, than an office, because I'm kind of a social beast. Of course, I want to talk to everybody. For me, it actually works better to work remote. I enjoy it. And the other part is if I need to throw in a load of laundry, I can go do that. If I need to defrost something for dinner, I can do that. But then there are times when, and I think during COVID, we all felt it isolated. And that was hard. We did a lot of Zoom.
Wasn't that hard for you since you like to be the social person?
It was very hard because I traveled so much for my job. I traveled every week, and then you come to a screeching halt. I had just been to Hawaii to meet with all of my customers over there because I had at that time the Hawaii territory, and I was over there and then came home and the country shut down. I'm glad I got in a nice little trip before I had to shut down, but that was really hard when you're used to traveling every week and you're at home day in, day out. It's kind of like, oh, wow, this is what it's like.
Well, thank you so much for all the insights. And we know that some people are introverts or extroverts, and for everybody it was a difficult situation, but it seems like it's about the discipline, having that marathon mindset and not giving up. Even if you have difficult days, tomorrow is another day.
Exactly. Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you, Suzanne. This has been fun.
Thank you so much for this lovely conversation. I learned so much. Take it from the Ironwoman. We have episodes every Monday. There's something you can take away from each episode. And we have episodes in English, French, Spanish, German, and also Swiss German, and on all continents. Thank you so much for your support, and we'll see you next time. And please download Take It From the Ironwoman Global Business Coaching with Sports Parallels, or you can get the real book in your local bookstore. Thank you and bye-bye.